The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I, Ishika Shah, student of Media School, Delhi Metropolitan Education, welcome you all to Career in Media Series 2022. CMS is a 5-day interactive session with industry experts organized by DME Placement Cell to apprise students of the latest industry trends and scope in the media sector. I would like to take a moment and introduce Delhi Metropolitan Education, DME, to our viewers. Delhi Metropolitan Education, DME, is an A-grade premier educational institute affiliated to Guru Gobind Singh Indraprastha University, New Delhi, and approved by the Bar Council of India. The institute offers BA, LLB, BBA, and BBA LLB with BCI approval and BHMC programs. DME believes in imparting world-class education to its students while training them to develop and enhance their skills. This education and training enable them in taking up challenges in the industry and creating a space for themselves with their competence and vigor. DME Media School is one of the most promising media institutes in the country. It offers BA in journalism and mass communication. It is recognized as a school focused on the growth of its faculty and students through academic and co-curricular activities. Major flagship events and initiatives of the school include BG Verghese Lecture Series, Peer-to-Peer FGP, International Film Festival SIFI, International Conference ICANN, and Ritika Convention of Media Students. Newly added to the list are VIS, Vibrant India Series, and now CMS. The Training and Placement Cell of DME Media School acts as an interface between the industry and academia by facilitating professional opportunities for students and organizing guest lectures and special sessions with industry experts and senior media educators. The Training and Placement Cell functions under the aegis of DME Media School. Therefore, as an extended activity of the placement cell, the DME Media School keeps organizing interactive sessions with media experts. Now, I request Dr. Amrish Saxena, Dean DME Media School, to say a few words.
Thank you, Ishika. So this year we started this series, as already been told, to the gathering to apprise the students as to what is happening in the industry in different fields, right from journalism to advertising to public relations and all. Because the time is such, particularly if I refer to this whole corona period, which has lasted for almost 2 years now. The job market has a little bit changed, be it journalism or any other sector. And obviously, this period has affected the teaching and training as well. And despite all efforts which were made by all education institutions, including DME, to make sure that the teaching and training is not affected, or we used different alternative methods on the online media. We did that all, but then obviously the status quo was broken, the normalcy was broken, and we have to devise new methods, new experiments and all, good or bad, whatever. But then two things I simply wanted to draw attention. One, that the teaching and training underwent a change during this period. And the industry has also underwent a change. Now, what is that change? That has to be understood by the students before they are going out in the industry. So we planned this kind of series focusing the final year students, those who want to join the industry after completing their bachelor's degree. Obviously, there are a number of students who want to pursue higher education straight after bachelor's degree. But even those people need to know as to in which sector what is happening, because that will help them not only to get admissions in different education institutions, but also it will help them to take admission in those kind of courses where they feel there might be more scope today or tomorrow and the time to come. So with this objective in mind, we have planned this series, and I'm happy to note that today this fourth episode of this Careers in Media series, we have Shivangi Sharma with us, who will be talking to you all, particularly on the advertising sector, because she has been for a very long time in the advertising industry. So she knows all ins and outs of the industry, and whatever she will be telling you, that will be from the horse's mouth, and then that will be more authentic, more reliable, and that will be of great use to the students, final year student, to whom this whole series is targeted. So I welcome Shivangi to this session, and looking forward for a fruitful discussion, fruitful session. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Our guest for today is Ms. Shivangi Sharma. Before I hand it over to her, I would like to share a brief note about her profile with you all. Ma'am has been a creative copywriter in advertising for more than 8 years. She is currently working as an associate creative director at Ogilvy, a global ad agency. Previously, she has worked with renowned global agencies such as Wunderman Thompson, Rediffusion, Y&R Network, and Adept Media. Ma'am has crafted successfully mainline and digital campaigns for brands such as Nestle KitKat, Hero Motorcorp, Taj Hotels, Parley Tata Group, Amazon Fashion, and UNICEF, to name a few. Her work has picked up awards at the Creative Abbys and has been shortlisted at Cannes and Effie's. Her documentary film, Tibet is Burning, was an official selection at the Dadasaheb Film Festival in 2015. She has been shortlisted for Writer's Digest Top 20 Short Stories and has been featured as a guest blogger in Indie Bloggers 360 Days of Post. She is an alumnus of Indraprastha College for Women, Delhi University. Now I hand over the session to Shivangi ma'am.
Thank you, Ishika. Shivangi is enough though. So I'd like to begin by thanking Amrish sir for this opportunity to come and speak to the upcoming talent. So thank you, sir, for letting me do this and take this one episode of your series. Okay, so guys, when we talk about advertising, it's a very passionate world. And so what I mean to say by a passionate world is, see, along with the skills and along with the interest in working for brands and creating ads, you need a lot of perseverance, patience, zeal, and a little bit of madness to be able to survive in this field and excel at it. And okay, so I'm sure that you must have heard, say, big names of agencies like Ogilvy, Wunderman Thompson, DDB Mudra, Dentsu, Publicis. These are the names of the agencies which have always been in light and have been known across the world. But the times are now changing. And what's changing, what's the biggest change that has come up is the digital boom. And with this digital expansion in almost every field in the world today, a lot of boutique agencies have come up. So when I say boutique agencies, I mean is that now they don't only focus on the bigger aspect of advertising, which is the mainline advertising, which we all have read about and learned about. They are also focusing on on integrating it with different aspects such as social media or digital marketing or experiential advertising or activations to involve people in real time to connect with the brand. So some of these agencies, I don't know if you know the names, but some of them are like Enormous, Glitch, Web Chutney, Famous Innovations. Just knowing these names will help you better when you're looking out for jobs and when you're looking out, reading out names of agencies. And in fact, this digital expertise is gaining such immense importance that nowadays all these earlier proud mainline ad agencies are also venturing into digital and creating their own integrated version. So like Ogilvy has evolved and adapted a sister concern which is called 82.5. Similarly, Dentsu expanded and acquired Web Chutney and Taproot, which are the two most I'd say Taproot was one agency which bought the digital boom in India for advertising, to be specific. So as as many and many agencies are booming and all new agencies are coming up, this is creating a lot of job opportunities for younger generation who are a lot more experimental with their career choices, who are not defined to specific roles of being an art director or being an account planner, so on and so forth. Like how do we understand more about this is, earlier there used to be 4 or 5 main departments in an ad agency, and somehow while explaining this you'll understand how an ad also is made through an ad agency. So once a client sends us a brief, who do they send the brief to? They send a brief to an account management person. Who are they? They are, I would like to say, as the face of the agency. They are the, you know the first person of contact for a client or for anyone when they come to an ad agency to hire them for services. Another important role that an account management person plays is that they act as a bridge, and they make sure that all the different departments of an agency stay connected. And so they are, what they do is they usually possess all the knowledge. They take the first hand knowledge from the client about the brand, its marketing goals. They build relationships and they maintain those relationships with the client, and they also help evolve a client budget. So if you're someone who has a lot of people skills, who has great communication skills, account management is one department. And you like talking to people, of course, because it involves a lot of phone calls on a reality everyday basis. So if you like doing all of that, account management is a good scope to work for you, and also climb the ladder in business management quickly. Another very important part in an ad agency is an account planning department, or so planners or strategists is the new word given to them. They, what do? They create a brand positioning. What is a brand positioning? A brand positioning is something jiske upar creatives create an ad. It's a point जो define करता है कि आपका brand, how will it communicate to the world. How do planners create this positioning for a brand is depending upon a brand's USP or a communication peg, the route which they want and the tonality which they want to communicate to the people. So planning is a very knowledge based and research oriented job. When I say that, it's not boring, but you have to be interested in learning about behaviors and tapping into emotions of people to become a planner. You have to know that, if I tap into humor for, say, an ad for a brand like Coca-Cola or Apple, then people will relate to it more as compared to if I make it sad. Because these are the brands that have always promoted happiness. Another very important, and this department I belong to because I'm a writer, as you all know. So the other most important department in advertising is creatives. So creatives usually branch out into two versions, or I should say used to branch out to two versions, which is copywriters and art directors. Copywriters and art directors usually work in teams, and I'd say that a good creative needs to find real human insights and create messages either in the form of a print ad or a TV commercial or a radio jingle or an experimental idea. But these messages need to be lucid and convincing to the target audience. So creatives need to be patient. They need to be someone with unique idea skills who knows to say one thing in 100 different ways, and someone who's able to think both inside and outside of the box. When I say think both inside and outside of the box, there's a reason to it, because writing for an ad is very different from writing for a blog or writing a journalist article or a magazine article, because you are not here to present facts. You are not here to present your point of view, but you have to communicate what the client wants to communicate. You have to be precise, yet you have to be emotive enough to capture the attention of people you're talking to. And now when I say that we are digitally evolving, that message needs to be as short as 10 seconds. So you have to make sure that your writing is impactful to, bring the consumer towards your brand. Similarly, for art directors, it's not about design and creating something unique. I mean, while it is about that, but they also need to find ways to express creativity that is comprehensive by the masses, and it also complements the copy. So it can't be like a writer has written something and an art director has done something. It has to be a collaborative effort to create an advertisement. So once all these stages cross, once a brief reaches a planner, a positioning is made, that positioning is given to a creative team, and that creative team creates an ad. What happens after that? How do we decide how an ad is going to be produced? So that is where your film or a production department comes in. It's a very small, but a very, I'd say, non-negligible department in an advertising agency. So what do films people or production management people do in an agency? Because you'll be wondering, because production otherwise is a very huge field, which includes lighting people, which includes directors, and so, I mean, that's another session in itself. So a production team in an advertising agency is confined to finding a right director or a right means of execution for an ad, depending on the kind of mood that an advertising campaign is wanting to promote. So for example, if we are looking out to make an ad for, say, Coca-Cola, we would want to find directors who are more enthusiastic, who've done ads which are fun and not very emotive, if you get what I am trying to say. So it's to marry the right kind of director and the right kind of production technique with the ad that creates the impact for the consumer at the end of the day. Another I think very important part of advertising, which we usually tend to forget while we talk about careers in advertising, is media planning. So a lot of agencies don't usually involve a media planner. I mean, it's not a part of the agency as such, but now with the integration that's happening, a lot of media planners have started coming up and collaborating with advertising agencies at the time of conceptions of the campaigns. So what does a media planner or a media planning agency do? They select the best outlet or medium to reach the consumer that a client wants or that your ad wants to reach. So a media planner will plan, book, schedule, and purchase. So what do they purchase? They purchase spaces in print media and outdoors. कौन से ad पे मेरा billboard, which city will the billboard be, which highway the billboard will come, which newspapers my ad will be printed on. That is something that a media planner decides. And what else? So they also purchase time for your ad on TV, radio, and internet. So like, for example, if there's a viral video, like say some ice challenge video that has blown up the internet, and your brand wants to promote their ad on that video, so that task is the responsibility of a media planner. Now these were the fields which have always been there in advertising. nowadays, when we see the digital boom, and when we talk about it, you all know that social media has changed the game. Social media has opened up a lot of opportunities which were not even there 8 years ago when I joined advertising. So career options like being a digital strategist, a content creator, a writer, even exploring different means of art has evolved with the help of social media. So what has happened is the roles have not changed, but the roles have expanded. And what has this done is, it has helped the younger generation, especially you guys who are so adept with social media, to come at par with people who are there in mainline agencies. And why I'm sure you must be wondering how is that possible, because you're just a college student, but you guys know social media and the internet at your fingertips. And that is something that we as advertisers are still learning and still trying to get a grasp of. And even the way now we look at executing ads, it has changed. So earlier there was a scope for art directors, or basic, so much so that graphic designers, but now there is a scope of illustrators, there is a scope for 3D artists, there is a scope for installations. So the way we look at art in advertising has also evolved with time. So like, more knowledge is welcome. Brands are getting more experimental with the kind of ads they want to do. Earlier it was about a PVC or a print ad, or like 2 minute ka digital ad we will run. But now they want to tap into people at in real time, at real places. If you're at a mall and that's where they want to promote their product, they'll be there. So that is how the world of advertising is changing and evolving. And with it, in expanding career opportunities for people like you. And having said all that, before we enter the question and answer round, because I think that's where we can interact more and get to know what you guys want to know about advertising. I just want to say that if you want to choose what's best for you, you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. But what's more important than that is you have to know what sparks passion within you, and where does your strengths, weaknesses, and this passion overlap. That's the career path that you need to go for. So thank you, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Thank you, ma'am. Now I would like to invite Mr. Mohammed Kamal, Assistant Professor, DME Media School, for a question and answer.
Thank you, Ishika. Though we are getting questions from students, and I like Sukriti ma'am also to please ask some questions as she is taking the subject advertising. And in the meanwhile, I also have a question, ma'am. Like in the post-pandemic era, when we talk about like there are so many changes that are taking place. So, what are the things that a student should keep in his or her mind so that she could or he could prepare for the upcoming challenges?
See, to be very honest, I know pandemic has brought a lot of challenges for a lot of people and a lot of industries. I'd say in real life for advertisers, it was a boon. It was a boon, because especially for someone, when you're a creative, you want that space. And now that we're at the comfort of our homes, we do get to sit and relax and think about it better, and we have more time to invest in creating an advertisement and creating a strategy. The post pandemic world has, as an advertiser, the only challenge that you will face is that, which was earlier a very discussion oriented job, because you need to discuss with departments, you need to discuss with your team, your art partner, to be able to come up with a very collaborative effort, now seem more like a very, it's aloofing, and it's lonely at times when you're working. But I think nowadays we have access to technology, and that has linked us in a way which in earlier times we weren't. So I would say, as long as we have the support of technology, we are not, it's not changing anything for people working in advertising.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, one more question that is related to your talk. You talked about the strength and the weaknesses towards the end.
Yes.
And so I would like you to, elaborate more on the opportunities and the threats that are there in the advertising industry. If you could, elaborate a little bit on that part, opportunities and threats.
Okay. See, advertising comes with a lot of opportunities in terms of, there is some, for someone who is very business oriented, there is a chance. For someone who's very studious, who's a nerd, who likes to research, who likes to talk to people, who likes to find how behavior changes with economies, how, how different communication patterns impact behavior. So for someone like that, advertising has a scope. For someone who has always been a scribbler since childhood, advertising supports their career dreams too. For someone who really loves to write and talk, and I'd say which seemed like meaningless blabber has now been converted into meaningful ads. Like if you look at old OLX ads, I mean, that there is no sense to it. So when it comes to strengths, I think advertising, one thing that people need to, I mean, students need to keep in mind is that it's a very observational industry. You have to have strong observation skills, whether you're in account planning to judge what your client wants, whether you're a creative to understand how a person would react seeing this ad. Like, if I'm stuck in traffic, or if there is a problem of public transport, how should Uber communicate to tap into that exact emotion of not waiting for a bus or not waiting for an auto and having your own ride drop you home? I'd say the strengths that people need to have is, one is of observation skills. Apart from that, your interest in the field is sufficient enough to take you places. When it comes to threats, see, I don't want to scare the the kids. No threats as such, but yes, you have to understand that it's especially with the onset of social media, it's a very fast-paced industry now. So because with things like moment marketing, you can't lose your spot. You cannot afford to do that in terms of the number of competition, in terms of agencies and brands also that you have. So yes, that is something that people need to keep in mind.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am, one more question that I have in the chat box.
Yes.
One student is asking,
Yes.
ma'am, as I also teach writing skills, and I know it is comparatively very easy to, just go on to the field and take some notes, talk to people, and just pen down a story. But when it comes to copywriting for an ad agency or advertisement as a whole, so what is your take on that, and how a student should polish his or her skill so that he could come up with a very good kind of a copy?
See, for a copywriter, brevity is something that you have to always keep in mind. How can I say something in as less words as possible, but it has to have an impact on the other person? ये सबसे ज्यादा जरूरी होता है जब हम copywriting करते हैं. Very important. And see, how you grow is you have to work on your craft. If I say, let me explain it with an example. If Cadbury says कुछ मीठा हो जाए, it's a way of saying, यार, ultimately तुम्हें chocolate खिला रहे हैं वो, they are selling chocolate. But the angle of kuch meetha ho jaye ties it to a very bigger thought, a very bigger circle of thought, where we are saying that whenever you're celebrating something, whenever it's a happy moment, you eat sweets. And we are in that ad, when we use this tagline, when a copywriter wrote kuch meetha ho jaye, and visually we see a Cadbury, we are replacing our idea of mithai with the chocolate. So that is something that a copywriter needs to keep in mind. So there has to be like a comparison with a real life story that my product can carry on, and that is how you excel in copywriting. It's not difficult, to be very honest. Copywriting and advertising, it is different, yes, as you said, that it's not a story that I'm building, because at the end of the day, in advertising, they are not interested in my stories. If I'm a journalist, people want to listen to my stories because they know I'm giving them facts. But when I'm writing for someone else. I am keeping, say, maybe Kamil sir in mind, and thinking, okay, he is someone who wears glasses and he's a lecturer. So I have to think how Kamil sir would want to look when he's going to give a lecture, and that's how I will write for my product. So that's the only difference that comes up when it's about copywriting.
So, ma'am, I have one more question, and that is related to the job profiles that we have in advertising
Yes.
companies and agencies. It is, what are the beginner job profiles in client servicing, and what does the job entails?
Okay. So see, when you join in any agency, in any department, usually you join as a trainee. So when you're, for example, in specific to account management, you will be a management trainee when you join in. And see, while you learn how to deal with the client and everything, your basic task will include coordinating with different departments. Say, for example, agar mujhe client ne ek marketing brief diya hai that we have this ball pen that we want to make an ad on, and the USP of this pen is that it writes really smoothly. You have to take these messages from the client, convey it to the planning department, convey them to the creatives. Then what the how a creative would create an ad, you have to take that ad back and explain it to your client. So your role mainly is to make sure that all these three people, your client, your creative, and your planning, are on the same page always. Another key responsibility area for someone at a beginner level in servicing is to uh, execute. I mean, when I say execute, it's to deliver market researches. And so when I say market researches, you can say, for example, if I'm doing a consumer based research for a mobile called Gioni, or say Samsung for that matter, what I'll do is I will go and speak to the dealers to understand which economic section buys Samsung more, which which age group buys Samsung more, so that when my creative is writing that ad, we can keep that TG in mind. Another part that you will be doing is something called an MR, which is called a market release, wherein you have to make sure that your ad is getting adapted into the correct size for the medium that it's going to get published in. So, for example, if it's a print ad, so if it's going a half pager ad or a full pager ad, you have to make sure that it's in the correct dimensions. You have to coordinate with the media planning agency and your creatives to be able to ensure that the process is running smoothly. That's the entry level job profiles that you will have. But as you will grow and you will become an account director and a business director and a VP someday, which is a vice president someday, you will be dealing and you will be shifting more towards bringing new business and maintaining relationships with clients. That's going to be your major profile.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I have one more question
No problem.
in this context, ma'am.
No problem.
In majority of the mass communication fields, we see that there is an option of entrepreneurship. So if we talk about this thing in advertising agency, what a person can do to initiate.
Sorry, I didn't get it. So
Like I said, ma'am, like we have opportunities in other field to become an entrepreneur and start our own enterprises. So what we can do if somebody is looking to start a ad agency, or if he wants to begin at his end, so what are the things that he should keep in mind?
okay, uh, at the level that you guys are at the moment, see, becoming an entrepreneur is not difficult. What the the term that goes around in the industry for an entrepreneur these days is a freelancer. So instead of, I'd say, because opening up an advertising agency is a mammoth task and it takes a lot. It's not a one-man show. You cannot do that. You have to have people with different skill sets to be able to run an agency smoothly, and to, because at the end of the day you're here to make profit. It's not something that you're doing to earn money. When you're running a business, there's a difference. So I'd say at a beginner's level, entrepreneurship in advertising is a little difficult. But yes, when I say freelancing, that helps you interact with different brands and, not be a part of an organization, yet be a part of the industry and try to work with different people to understand how things go about, to make contacts, to develop skills that are required for, for later, when you can become an entrepreneur, when you have the money, you have the people, you have the contacts to start up an ad agency.
Ma'am, now we have Sukriti ma'am also. She teaches advertisement here. So I would like her to ask at least one or two questions so that.
Absolutely.
Hi. So my question is related to particularly the teaching of the subject of advertising. And we try a lot to inculcate the skill of copywriting in particular. But I think sometimes we also focus too much on creativity at times, and we forget that client servicing is a very important aspect.
Absolutely.
So what are the skills that you think one should focus on, and how can we also teach our students to develop the skills for client servicing in particular? That is the area where a lot of jobs are there in advertising, I believe. So what's your take on that?
See, when it comes to teaching, I'd say, firstly, I'm sure you guys are doing an absolutely amazing job. I am not the one to tell you how to teach students. But yes, there are some things that we should focus on. So rather than just narrowing down to say either servicing or creatives or planning, I'd say it's important to tell a student, how things work in an ad agency, so that they can choose for themselves what they want to do. Because we can teach them, we can tell them how things, how it's done, but that at the end of the day, when you choose a career, you have to have that skill set within to be able to excel. So see, especially when it comes to servicing is a very, as I said, it's almost like PR, almost like a subset of PR, where you have to not only present a good picture of your agency, but you have to make sure that the client is happy. But when I say that, I think being from the industry, it's very important to tell the future client account management people to, the most important thing that you need to learn is where to put down your feet and where to serve it to the client on a platter. That's the most important thing that you need to learn. You have to, because it can't be that you can't say yes to everything that the client says, right? So you have to know what parts you can compromise with, and what parts you have to take a stand or present a point of view as an agency. So people need to have their own opinions when they are in client servicing. It's not just about point A to point B conversation. You have to have your opinions. You have to be a leader, when I say, in terms of leading your agency, because you're the face of the agency. It's basis on your rapport that a creative gets their rapport or a planner gets their rapport, and it's basis your rapport that an agency is able to retain their businesses. So yes, I'd say people skills and being a leader and being confident in, and of course knowing what you're talking about, is very important when it comes to client servicing.
So, the thing that you just said, that sometimes you have to know when to put your foot down. I faced this very situation today, that my students came to me, they're talking with a client about creating their ad campaign for their final project. And the client is very specific about how they want the advertisement, which to me appeared that it is coming across as a little sexist and even ageist to an extent. but the client is very determined. So that is what I told my students. But at the same time, I think students become nervous when they talk to a real client, and they
Yeah.
are not confident about how to say no to a client. That is a skill I think that they would really have to learn, and how to convince somebody else about their idea.
Yes. See, it's a logic based argument, you know. So if I'm trying to tell you, at the end of the day, see, to be really fair, at the end of the day, it's usually their decision, but that's not how we teach students. We have to tell them that it's a logical argument every time. So if you're not liking, and in a way that is convincing to the client, you have to show them the good sides and the bad sides of what they want to say. Because sometimes when you're coming from a brand's perspective, and especially from a client's perspective, they are more focused on sales and profit than what you're saying. And for them to understand the creativity gets a little difficult at times. So you have to make sure that they understand why you're saying something, and they understand that, okay, this is a creative liberty. Okay, it's not saying have something sweet, it's saying, it's a way of saying kuch meeta ho jaye, right? It's a casual this thing. So that is what, and it comes with time. That is something that a servicing person needs to have, to be able to deliver that argument and to make sure that the client understands where an agency is coming from. That is something that will help your students also to pursue your client in dropping an idea or picking up an idea.
Just one follow-up question here that I have. When it comes to making an advertisement, especially something that may be coming across as controversial, or just the sort of example I gave, how much do you think that is at stake for the agency itself when they are making an ad that could put the brand, obviously it will put brand into the controversy, but how much of it is falling back on the agency after it, about the agency's reputation in all of this?
A lot of it. See, when we are creating an ad, it's our product. It's something that we have given our sweat and blood to. So you don't want to create work which you don't want to own later, at the end. So any agency, I can say this for, we make sure that the end product is 100% authentic to our knowledge, and of course creative in terms of reaching the right kind of people before we execute it or before we release it. That is something that every agency takes care of.
Thank you so much. I'll hand over back to Kamil sir now.
It is over to you, Ishika. We are moving towards the last leg of the session. Ishika, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an insightful session. I would now request Dr. Susmita Bala, Head of DME Media School, to give the concluding remarks.
Thank you, Ishika. Thanks, Shivangi Sharma. It's a wonderful session. I think in advertising, you have different area to work. If you have observation skills, minute observation, if you are creative, you can do everything, lots of work in your advertising field. You have option like graphic designer, illustrator, content writer. Yes, various aspects of this amazing profession. Visualization to final work, you can do experiment with tagline, craft, colors and creative skills. एडवर्टाइजिंग में सिर्फ क्रिएशन के अलावा हमें क्लाइंट्स की रिक्वायरमेंट के अकॉर्डिंग काम करना पड़ता है, जो क्लाइंट्स की डिमांड होगी उसके अकॉर्डिंग काम करना पड़ता है. तो एंड अदर थिंग कि व्हाट इज योर टारगेट ऑडियंस, हमारी टारगेट ऑडियंस क्या है, उसके अकॉर्डिंग हम कलर्स एंड ऑल डिसाइड करते हैं. तो इट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट कि सबसे पहले आप देखिए कि आपका क्लाइंट क्या है, क्लाइंट आपका क्या कह रहा है कि हमारी टारगेट ऑडियंस क्या है. आफ्टर दैट यू कैन डिसाइड योर क्रिएटिविटी एंड विजुअलाइजेशन. जैसे मैंने कहा, विजुअलाइजेशन टू फाइनल वर्क, यू कैन डू लॉट्स ऑफ वर्क. Yes, you're right, it's a group work. बिना टीम के काम करना थोड़ा मुश्किल है, तो ये this is very important, and many students would be keen to explore the field of advertising. So thank you very much for your time and inputs, Shivangi. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. I now request Mr. Mohammed Kamil, Assistant Professor, DME Media School, to give the vote of thanks.
So, on behalf of DME Media School, I am Mohammed Kamil, Assistant Professor. Thank Shivangi ma'am for this wonderful session. You talked about the process of making an ad. You talked about the role and responsibilities, and you very beautifully mentioned the nuances of advertisement in the current scenario. And I hope it will be very helpful for our students. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure being here.
The first impression that comes to our mind about any college: tall buildings, big classrooms, large lobby areas, thick books, IT labs, assignments, class tests, and projects. Nothing besides that. Every hour, minute, second spent here help us carving and shaping our persona, cultivating innovative mindsets for the challenging world. Learning is a lifelong process. Sharing knowledge, inculcating values of life, spark the innovative horizons of mind. Fun and frolic is the nature of every nook and corner here. A daily dose of thrill we are sure to get here.